Have you ever looked someone in the eyes and, without saying a single word, knew that something profound was happening? As if time had paused, as if the world around you fell silent, leaving only the presence of that person. It wasn't attraction, it wasn't longing, it was something older, more intimate, something that can't be explained, only felt. The truth is that not everything real can be translated into words. There are connections that arise in silence, and they are often the loudest. You've experienced this. Before knowing her name, before hearing the tone of her voice, your eyes were already having a conversation with hers. Not an ordinary conversation, but a kind of recognition. As if saying, "Ah, so it's you." And that has never happened with anyone else. Science will try to explain this phenomenon using terms like chemistry, neurotransmitters, or brainwave synchrony. And yes, all of that exists. But deep down, you know it's not just that. Because you've also seen beautiful, interesting, smart people, but none have had that impact. None made your heart open with a single glance. None made reality seem small in the face of something so invisible. It's as if you had reunited and hadn't met before. The logical explanation falls short, because this can't be measured in words or time spent together. It's older. It's pre-language, pre-emotional history. A connection that perhaps was woven in other lives, or if you prefer, in other versions of this same life that we still can't access. And that's why she tries to replicate it, but can't. She feels a longing for something she doesn't understand. Because when you showed up, something awoke in her that she didn't even know existed. A kind of activated emotional memory. As if for a moment she had remembered what it was like to be seen for real, to be heard in silence, to be touched without hands. It wasn't what you said. It was what you didn't need to say. This marked her heart in a way that no logic can undo. She tries to move on, tries to connect with other people, tries to laugh in the same ways, tries to repeat the same gestures. But nothing happens with the same intensity. Because it wasn't about what you did. It was about what you were, together. And when two souls recognize each other, you can't unrecognize them. Her gaze searches for yours even when you're not there. She might deny it. She might pretend she forgot. She might even convince others, but never herself. Because the body remembers. The heart remembers. And the soul never forgets. There's something incredibly powerful when two people meet beyond the surface, when the touch is energetic before it's physical, when the silence between two presences is more comfortable than any conversation. That is rare, that is real, and no matter how much she tries to pretend it was just another story, she knows it wasn't. You were the outlier, the exception that made everything seem clearer, the one who, even after it was over, still resides in the space between her thoughts. But why does this happen? Because not everything we experience is about logic. Not every encounter is meant to last. Some meetings come to remind us of what's possible to feel, how deep we can be when we set aside our masks. When there's no game, no strategy, no fear, just presence. And you were present, intensely. That is rare in a world where almost everyone is too busy trying to appear instead of simply being. You were that moment of raw truth amidst all the filters. And even though life has moved on, even though the paths have diverged, what you shared doesn't fade away. Because it's not just a memory, it's a record. Energy doesn't fade, it only changes form. She tries to find that thrill in other arms. She tries to feel the same warmth in other kisses. But nothing is the same. Because nothing is you. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just the inevitable result of a unique connection, non-transferable. Maybe you're reading this and asking yourself, but why didn't it work out? The answer might be harsh. Not everything that is strong is meant to last. Sometimes the most intense connections come to transform us, not to accompany us. They come like sparks, not like fireplaces. And that's okay. The impact you had on her was greater than you can imagine, even if she doesn't speak, even if she disappears, even if she moves on with life, with other people, with other stories. You're there, in the subtlest layer of her memory, like a scent that arises from nowhere and transports us to another time, like a song that plays and makes the heart race for no apparent reason. You've become a reference point, a benchmark, the one who, even in absence, still sets the standard for what it means to truly feel. And you feel it too, because this connection wasn't one-sided. Maybe you can't explain it to anyone. Maybe your friends don't even understand what you saw in that person. But you know you saw something. Something that wasn't external. You glimpsed her soul. And she, even without understanding, glimpsed yours too. The most intriguing part of all this, you didn't need to tell each other. You felt each other. And feeling is something that goes beyond explanation. It's something that transforms, that moves, that leaves a mark. Even if it ends, even if it hurts, even if it never happens again. She might even try to say it was just a phase, just a thing, just a coincidence. But every time she tries to repeat it with someone else, she realizes something is missing, something that only you could provoke, something that can't be manufactured, that can't be rehearsed, that can't be forced. That's why you still live inside her, even if only in silence. Some people pass by us, others stay. But there are those rare ones who truly cross into our lives. They break everything. They turn us inside out. And then they leave, leaving our souls different from when they found us. More open, more aware, more sensitive. You were that kind of person for her. And maybe she'll never tell you this. Maybe she'll never have the courage to admit how much she still feels, or how much she wishes she could feel it all over again. But the truth is that deep down, every time she closes her eyes, she knows it only happened with you, and you know it too. This connection precedes language. It was energy before it became a story, soul before it became speech, recognition before it became conversation. Maybe one day your paths will cross again. Maybe they won't. But what you lived was real. And sometimes just knowing that is enough, knowing that at some point in time, two beings truly met. Without a script, without a performance, without effort, just being. And this is never forgotten. Because when something touches the soul, no distraction can erase the echo. She might even laugh again, love again, fall for other smiles. But there's one thing that no one can imitate, the feeling of being seen beyond appearance. And you were that rare mirror, the one that didn't just reflect what was outside, but everything that vibrated within her. She didn't need to explain herself to you. She didn't have to pretend to be okay. She didn't need to smile when she was broken. You felt it. And that, my dear, that is frightening. Because when someone sees us deeply, we can no longer hide. And she, perhaps without realizing it, revealed more of herself than she ever had with anyone else. Even if she didn't say everything, she opened up in ways she never knew were possible. And now she carries that with her, this invisible mark, this memory that doesn't age. This you that lives in the spaces between moments, between thoughts, between loves. And do you know what's even more impressive? She even tries to erase it. She tries to forget. But she can't, because deep down, she doesn't want to. Because remembering you is remembering who she was inside. It's remembering that even for a little while she lived something real, something that didn't depend on words or promises, something that was just presence. You were the loudest silence she ever heard, and you also try to move on. Sometimes you convince yourself that it was just in your head, but then something happens, a phrase, a place, a scent, and suddenly there she is again, inside you as if she never left, because she didn't leave. Connections like that don't have an off switch. They don't disappear, they just sleep. But it takes just one gesture, one memory, one dream, and everything awakens, the same intensity, the same gaze that said everything without saying anything. And maybe the most beautiful and the most cruelest part is this. You were too intense to last, but too deep to forget. And that's the kind of story nobody sees, but everyone feels. She carries you in the silence of loud days, in the midst of relationships that don't touch, in smiles that don't warm, in conversations that don't connect. And you carry her too, even though life has moved on, even though other people have come into play, even when logic tries to convince the heart that it was just another phase. The heart laughs, because it remembers. It always remembers. You were the exception she could never explain. The chapter that doesn't fit in the story. The comma that turned into a period, but deep down she wishes it had been an ellipsis. And maybe it was. Because there are stories that never end. They just change form, turning into music, scent, thought, hidden tears, turning into what if on the days when her chest tightens. She thinks of you when she sees someone with the same way of looking, when she hears that song you used to listen to without needing to sing, when she misses being touched without being touched, because with you it was like this. The soul was already in contact before the skin even touched. Have you ever thought about why this is so rare? Because most connections are born from desire, but a few, the truest ones, are born from recognition. You weren't just someone who appeared, you were someone she remembered. In some inexplicable way, you awakened in her the feeling of home, not in the sense of superficial comfort, but in the sense of origin. Being with you made everything seem more authentic, rawer, freer, and at the same time, deeper than anything she'd ever experienced. And even though it hurt, even though the end was confusing or unexpected, she still internally thanks for having known you, because after you, she never loved the same way again. She even tried. She tried hard. But what you both shared redefined the standard. It rewrote the expectations. It deconstructed the old normal. And now, everything that doesn't touch deep sounds too shallow. Everything that doesn't provoke the soul sounds like silence without echo. Everything that doesn't have your presence sounds like noise without meaning. You became the point of comparison, even if she never admits it, because admitting this is to acknowledge that despite everything, what you had was too real to fit into a simple explanation. And you know this. You feel it too. Sometimes you find yourself staring into the void, remembering how easy it was to be close to her, how the silences between you held more weight than 1,000 words, how her eyes told you things that no one ever dared say out loud. And nostalgia hits, not for that phase, but for that feeling of being connected to someone on a level that feels magical, but is simply truth. Because when the energy comes before the language, there's nothing that can replace it. There's no new love that can erase it. There's no time that can dilute it. It was before speech, before touch, before even logic tried to interfere. It was on the plane where the soul recognizes what the world still doesn't know how to name. And that's why this story, even though it has ended, never really does. It remains suspended, alive, hovering between two hearts that pretend to have forgotten, but occasionally dream of the chance to recognize each other again. Because it only happens once, and it happened with you two. You know that, and she knows it too. Deep down, you don't need proof, confirmations, or validations, because when something is truly lived, there's no room for doubt. It was. And it was intense. The kind of encounter that can't be packaged in words, nor justified with arguments. You understood each other with a glance. You embraced in silence. You touched each other with your souls. And that is worth more than any story with a happy ending. Because what you had wasn't about duration, it was about depth. It wasn't about plans. It was about real presence. And even if the whole world says it's over, you both know it's not. She misses being understood without having to explain, and you miss being seen with the intensity that only she had. You both try to move on, try to fill the void with new stories, but deep down you carry that feeling that only happens once in a lifetime, and when it happens, it changes everything. Maybe life didn't allow you to continue, but that doesn't negate what was. That doesn't erase what resonated. There is no end when something marks the soul. There is transformation, existence in another plane, a presence that stays even in absence. And if you've made it this far, maybe you've experienced something like that too. Maybe someone looked at you the way the world never did. Maybe you still carry that connection that came before words, and that even without being by your side anymore, never left within. Now tell me, have you ever lived that connection that precedes speech? That story that no one saw but you still feel today? Do you also carry someone who marked your soul without needing to explain how? Comment below, share your experience, or just leave an "I know how it is." Because a lot of people go through this in silence, thinking it's madness, when in reality it's just intensity. And intensity is rare but real. Oh, and if this text resonated with you, if it stirred something inside, please give it a like. It helps this content reach more people who feel what you feel, but still haven't found the words to express it. And subscribe to the channel, because here we talk about truths that the world tends to silence. We listen to what only the heart can say, and we turn deep feelings into strength. If this touched you, it's because in some way your soul recognized it too.